All right, so welcome everyone. I'm gonna share my screen here. There we go. Okay, so this is the PPE manual, and I've clicked on student resources here. There's not much on this page, but I want to just touch on a couple things. First is this virtual placement expectations. Make sure that you read through these before you go out on your PPEs if you're having a virtual one. These are just some kind of like, I actually got these from Children's Hospital. So they're detailed and this is what they expect. And so it's just a good guide for everybody that's having a PPE. The main thing is to make sure that you're in a secure area so that you don't have people walking behind you or into the room that you're in, because you may be looking at PHI. And so we just want to make sure that you're in a secure area. One other thing I'll note along the lines of confidentiality and things is just make sure that you, if you take or want, I should say, screenshots of anything or want to retain copies of anything for, say, your final PPE report that I'm going to talk about soon, make sure you ask before you do that. Sometimes things are proprietary and they don't want them shared. And so just always ask first. Any questions on that before I go on? No? Okay. All right. And then, and of course, my mouse is giving me a hard time today, you guys. I just ordered a new one. For some reason, it keeps like disconnecting from the Bluetooth. It's weird. I ordered a wired mouse now. Like, I'm just going to go back to the old faithful. Um, Okay, next is the content areas and interview questions. So this I wanted to point out because several of you, when I met with you during a pre-PPE conference, you talked about, what kinds of questions do I ask and things. And I also talked to many of you about making sure you're prepared going into meetings. And so this is a page that definitely check out because I have basically, this is just all questions. Okay, so these are general interview questions, so you could ask these of anybody, okay, to start off. And then the content, different content areas. To get an idea too of kind of what we mean by content area, this might be a great place to start. So if you're meeting with, you know, just want an overview of the organization and department, this, start here, go into coding, operations. So check out these questions ahead of time. Use these as a way to prepare before you go into meetings. The list is very long. You could also print it out. I believe you can just use this, pop it out and download it and print it. So that's the other resource. The main thing I wanted to cover tonight is the final PPE report instructions. So I will try not to be too long-winded here. So the main thing with the final PPE report is to make sure that you know what this contains and what's expected of you before you go into your PPE, to make sure that when you're having these meetings and you're working through your project and things, so that you're collecting the information, you're taking notes on the things that you need to then report out on. Okay. So the final PPE report has five. This is an outline of the report. Five sections. The first section is the PPE project. The second is the five content area essays. The third is a workflow analysis. The fourth is related to management and leadership principles, and that is the discussion that we're having in class this week on the interview questions that you'll use to do your leadership style assessment. And then the fifth section is a reflection paper. And there is a sixth one listed here, and that's kind of an alternative one to the workflow analysis, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so I'm going to dive in here. So the first thing, just so you know, every single section of the report, I have instructions here for you, and I have a grading rubric. So this should be hopefully helpful to you as you work through each area. But so there's kind of like an introduction here to it. There is this PPE project information document. I'm going to click on that just so you can all see it. This would be a great form or document to use when you're meeting with your mentor and going through your project initially. It just kind of captures some of the basics. So, like, what is it that they want you to do? Why? So you have a good understanding of the purpose, the timeline. So if they want it due before the last day of the PPE, what is your end product or deliverable that they're expecting from you? And then here's any resources that they have that could help you complete your project. Okay. So I just wanted to point that out that please use that um, to help you with that kind of initial meeting about your project. All right. So the section on the project is uh, so I don't want to read all this to you guys. You guys can read this. This is just the details on the length and things. But you should have an introduction that covers all of these items on here. You should have what is your strategy or action plan? So basically, how did you tackle it? How did you tackle the project? The methodology, if you had to do any data analysis, your resources, things like that, the results, recommendations, findings, and then your deliverable. The results, recommendations, and findings. So this could even be kind of ancillary things that came up while you were working on it. But if you do have any recommendations or findings throughout the project, make sure you're capturing those. And then, of course, the end product. So I'll say a couple things about the end product. So your deliverable that they have you create. Um, for the most part, they should know that you're going to share that with me, right? Your instructor. Um, but in some cases, you might actually be working with PHI and doing some of that data analysis kind of stuff. Um, and so for that, let's just use this as a really basic example. If you're creating, say, a spreadsheet, or working with a spreadsheet that has PHI, what I would like is for you to kind of like give me an example of what that looked like. So you could fill it with just some very basic fake information to just kind of give me an idea of what that end product was. Okay. So obviously no PHI, but if you can give me kind of a replication of it with maybe a few fake patient names filled in there, that would be just fine. Some of the PPE mentors will have you do a little presentation at the end of the PPE and kind of share what your project was with other people in the department. Um, they don't all do that. There's just some of them that do that. But if you do have to give a presentation, make sure you include that in your final PPE report as part of your project section. I'd love to see that. And it's just another way for me to see evidence of your project. And then, of course, if you use any references or resources, make sure you share those. So that's the project section. Do you have any questions on either any of that, Marissa or Laura? No? Okay. All right. I'll move on. And here's the grading rubric for the project section. So you can take a look at that. Okay. All right. So the content areas, um, these are just kind of short essays, 2 to 3 pages, double spaced, and they can be on anything that you want. Um, and so you could go back to this content areas and interview questions to look at the different areas, or as I shared with several of you during your pre-PPE meetings, this could be a very interesting meeting that you attended. It could be talking about a project the organization or the department's working on. It could be you meeting with a really interesting person and learning about a new role. It could be the manager maybe shared with you a difficult situation that she's dealing with, maybe with an employee or something, and you want to write about that. Pick whatever you want. Um, the main thing is that, you're gonna, for each of these essays, you're gonna give an introduction. The body of the essay will be kind of like just telling me what it is and kind of why you're writing about it. But then just note this, that I want to see 2 examples of course content from readings, assignments, projects, presentations, or lectures. So whatever that content area is that you pick, relate it back to, you know, a course you took or something you did in the program. Okay. So I hope that that's pretty straightforward. I also give you some writing prompts here. This, I hope, makes it even extra easy on you, just to give you things to think about and things that you could share about the topic. Um, so yeah, so use that. And then the grading rubric for each of those essays is here as well. Okay? I think have fun with that. Those essays, and I know writing essays isn't the funnest, but I hope you pick things that you are really interested in, and then that'll be easier to write about. Those are also really good things to get done while you're on the PPE. So if you have time in the evening or time during the day when you're at the PPE site, start writing. All right. The next is that PPE workflow analysis. So this, if you remember, this is that area where I have that alternative um, uh, section that you could do. So the reason I have an alternative is because sometimes in online or PPE or virtual PPEs, completing a workflow analysis can be challenging because you're not right there in person looking at what they're doing. So I have had students though in a virtual environment do workflow analysis, and it's been just fine, but just kind of see how it goes, okay? Um, it is an area where if you really would like to do one, talk to your mentor about it, and they probably have something that you could take a look at. So definitely ask if that is an area that you're interested in. So back to the actual section. So the workflow analysis, what you're going to do is you're going to identify a current process at the PPE site. So it could be, release of information. It could be, access to the patient portal, or it could be really any kind of process. Um, and then you're going to conduct an interview, observe people doing it, try to see it through a couple of times so you have a really good understanding of it, and then you're going to develop a workflow diagram for that process. Um, and so I have several examples for you. Um, on how you can create that. You can use we used to use Kakuma more often. I don't know if you guys still use or have used Lucid Chart in your CIS courses, but you can use that or MS Word, whatever, Visio, whatever you have access to. Just make sure whatever that it ends up being, that I can open it. So put it in a PDF, or make sure you copy and paste it into your report. But you're going to just document that process. The main thing here is I want to see that you can, one, analyze a process, and two, document it, right? And create a workflow diagram. Then you're going to analyze the current state. So you've seen it through, you develop a flow chart or workflow, then you're going to take a look at it and you're going to say, well, how can I improve this? Was there bottlenecks anywhere? Is there unnecessary duplication of efforts? Is it just some of it just takes a really long time? So familiarizing yourself with the process and the areas for improvement. So you'll analyze it, and then you're going to just develop an essay, 2 to 3 pages, um, explaining the process and that you chose to analyze, why you selected it, how you conducted your analysis, and then your findings, right? Your findings for improvement. And then I want to know your thoughts on how those areas of improvement could be remedied or how you could improve it. Um, you this is an area where if they've asked you to do the workflow analysis, hopefully they'll want to hear your feedback. But if they don't take it personally. This is just a really great exercise for you guys to get some real world experience with workflow analysis and redesign. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? No? Okay. We'll keep going. Here's the grading rubric. Okay. So this is the discussion that we're having this week, where you guys are sharing some interview questions that we can use to determine the type of leadership style your mentor uses. So first, you're going to conduct an interview with them. You're going to take 10 of the interview questions that we've developed in class through the discussion forum. feel free to, add your own if something comes up and you think of it, that's just fine. But basically, document the 10 questions, provide their responses, and then you're going to do an assessment of their leadership style. Okay. And then, of course, provide your rationale for that. And so that's that. Next is an organization chart. Please do not give me a copy of the site's organizational chart. I want to know that I want to see how you create an organizational chart for your just like your department that you're in, okay? So it doesn't need to be like the entire HIM department if you're just focused in coding or whatever. I don't need that whole thing, but obviously if you're in a small HIM department, give me it all. But I want to see you create it. I want to see you develop an organization chart for your work area that you're in and to demonstrate that you understand the hierarchy of the department, and number two, that you can create an organizational chart. Okay. And then lastly, if you might need to dust off the cobwebs a little bit from Pam's management tools and strategies course, but think about the four managerial functions that you learned about: planning, organizing, directing, leading, and then controlling and evaluating. And then you can have a conversation with that mentor about this, or you can just do an assessment kind of on your own. But think through those functions and which ones they use and so give me examples of those. So we want to make sure that you understand the managerial functions and that you've seen some evidence of them in your manager, in other managers that you work with at your PPE. Okay, so that's that. All right.
I have a question,
Yep.
Katie.
Yep.
With us having to do a lot of interviewing with our
Hmm.
mentor,
Yep.
um, like, are they aware that we have to interview them as part of what we need to do for this class? Like, how do we set up time
Right.
to talk to them in this manner, especially when, because I'm remote.
Yep.
So I feel like with some of this, I feel like there might be some
Yep.
barriers
Yeah. That's an excellent,
to
yeah,
to
that's an
make
excellent
a
question.
to yeah, I feel like there might be barriers
Yep.
for remote
Yep.
with trying to get
Mhm.
some of the elements that are being requested.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, I want to tell you that yes, some, and I know I've said this to several of you, but not all of you. Um, some mentors get so focused on setting up all these interviews for you that they forget that like this is a management focused professional practice experience and that they do need to spend time with you, right? So I'll give you a couple ideas here. So first of all, if you get your schedule and you don't see a lot of time with your mentor, um, or another, maybe, in certain situations, I'm just going to use Children's Hospital, for example. So Chrissy Lundgren I know how she does her PPE. So she's obviously really busy. Every manager is busy, but what she does is she has two supervisors under her that kind of are the point people for our students. And so our as one of our students, you could interview either of those individuals as well for this. It just needs to be somebody in a leadership position. So if you're not getting a lot of time with your mentor, but you're getting time with another supervisor and maybe another point person, just take that opportunity then, Laura, to interview them. But all that to say, definitely ask for more time with your mentor too if you don't see a lot of that on your schedule. It's okay to say, hey, can I have like a half an hour of your time at the end of each day or the beginning of each day or over lunch, whatever might work for them. It's okay to ask. And if you don't think you're going to get it, then that's okay. Like I think you'll meet with plenty of other leaders and managers where you're going to be able to get the answers to these questions. Like you could just pick a different manager or different person in a leadership role to interview for that um, section. Does that help?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So the final section, you guys, is just a reflection paper. So basically talking about your experience. Um, Um, I'm I'm going to change up the I don't expect you to answer every single one of these questions. They're more like prompts. So I'm going to change up the instructions here a little bit, but basically you just reflect on your experience, what you learned, um, what did you like most, those kinds of things. Where do you see yourself in this organization? If, are you interested in working there? Some of those kinds of things. So just um, hopefully the easiest part of your final PPE report, honestly. Um, I hope. Um, okay, so let's just talk about that alternative assignment, you guys. If you can't do that workflow analysis, basically this is just another interview, taking more of a deep dive. We call it an exploration because we want you to kind of take a deeper dive into a role. So if you're going to be meeting with somebody that's in a role that you're really interested in, I would pick that to like do this section on. You're just going to conduct an in-depth interview. The main thing is that you try to prepare 20 to 30 questions, so maybe have something as a backup, right? But these things just kind of like going over their general background, the organization they work for, and description, overview of their role, HIM skills and knowledge they bring to the role. This is always interesting too because sometimes students, like, for example, maybe it's a role that could be fulfilled by an HIM professional, but it's being fulfilled with somebody with a completely different background, right? Maybe it's CDI and you have a really strong interest in documentation improvement, and the only person for you to interview is a nurse, right? So um go for it. Interview them, right? And then kind of do your analysis of the role and kind of think about how the HIM skills would fit into that. Um,
So a
yeah.
paper can be in lieu of the workflow
Yes.
analysis.
Yep. So this is your alternative, Laura. Yep. Yep.
I like it.
Yep.
Okay.
Because like I said, sometimes it's just impossible to do that workflow analysis from a remote.
Hmm.
Yep. So this just kind of gives you a way to do a deep dive into a different role, and then you're going to develop an essay. And so there's kind of three. Obviously, I want to see the questions and their responses, but in the end, it's just, what is there about yourself that you feel would make you successful in this position? Considering your top five strengths, what are your weaknesses you would need to strengthen prior to employment in this type of role? And is this position, is this something you'd like to hold? What would make it more desirable, or what makes it desirable or not desirable? So I hope not too intimidating, but would allow you to do a deep dive. So, all right.
Mhm.
So what questions do you ladies have?
Um, do you suggest working, because I know it's due
Yep.
in our next class. So um due to the length of this
Yeah.
project,
Hmm.
do you suggest working on it like obviously during our PPE, but until we get to that point,
Yes.
like
Yes.
just work on it in pieces because it's so like basically start it now because there's so
Yeah.
many objectives.
Yeah. So we have so a couple of things here. Definitely use the time between the end of your PPE to the start of spring term, because I'm not going to give you like dedicated time to work on the final PPE report during the seminar course. We have other things we got to get to in class. And so you really don't want this hanging over your head. Um, and the fact that you guys will be done, I think both you and Marissa both are done with your PPEs the 14th, right? Or 15th, I
Mm-hmm.
mean. Yeah, both
Yep.
of you are done the 15th. So you have, from the 15th
Weeks.
of November through winter break to work on it. Yeah, so
Okay.
definitely use that time.
Okay. So,
And we,
so if we can maybe try and have it completed by the time. the spring semester, is
Definitely.
that something you're suggesting to allow time to do
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Definitely. I do have students that kind of like, it depends. Everybody's got their own style, right?
Hmm.
Some students, they're like, okay, I know what I need to address here. I'm just going to take tons of notes, however they want to take notes. Other students, I've seen them actually pull this PPE report and kind of create an outline for themselves. So then
Hmm.
they just enter their notes right in there. Um, do what you need to do, right?
Okay.
Um, Whatever you think. But I just know that the farther out and the longer you wait, the less you remember. And there is nothing worse from my perspective and from a student's perspective of you having to go back to your mentor or somebody else at the site and be like, I can't remember. Like, can you?
Like,
Yeah, I don't want you doing that. So, so definitely do it as close to the end of your PPE as possible.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I have a question. It's probably
sure.
in the directions. I just need to refresh
That's
myself.
fine.
But all of this, like, will it be turned in as like one giant document?
hmm
Like,
Yeah. So
okay.
here's the other thing I'll do for you guys is I have a sample that I've kind of de-identified. And so I will post that sample for you all to take a look at. Okay. I'm not saying it's like it's pretty darn it's a good sample. Like it's a really good if you aspire to that sample, be doing great. It's not like perfect, but it's really good. So so I will post that probably tomorrow for you all to take a look at and just to kind of see how it's laid out and how they did things. If you need to do, I'll just add this one thing. So like if you do have something that's in like a PDF and you're doing your report in Word or using Google Docs or something, that's just fine. Just make sure that if you're referring to it, like say appendix, call them appendices or attachments or whatever, like make sure you name it like attachment one. And if you reference it within your document, just so I know, like, oh yeah, I see this other attachment here, and just upload it all at once to that assignment um, when we're ready. Because I just know that that can be a real pain trying to get everything formatted, or if you had to do a presentation and you have this PowerPoint or whatever, just yeah, just include it as like an attachment or something. But just make sure you name it so that I it's easy for me to be like, oh, that's what that is. Hmm. Yeah. I didn't want to overwhelm you guys. I know it seems overwhelming. I'm hoping like once you get into it and you kind of see how your PPEs go, it won't seem so overwhelming, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Sorry. It's better than it used to be. I won't even tell you what
Oh,
it used to be.
oh, geez. It's a lot of work for 44 points,
Yeah.
Katie.
Oh, no, it's way more points than that.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I saw
No,
44 points.
that's probably just one section.
I'm like,
Yeah.
are you serious? No,
No,
this thing's
no.
got to be worth
It's
at least
over.
500 points.
Yeah, I think it's over 200, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Any other questions?
Mm-mm.
I really cruised through that. I mean, it's only been a half an hour. So,
Yeah.
um, if
I
you
think
guys
I'm good.
if you guys think of anything else, though, please let me know. I just wanted to make sure we all were on the same page with the expectations. And if you're
Hmm.
on your PPE or you're working on this report anytime between now and the beginning of spring semester, please email me with questions. I'm happy to provide you with guidance. The other thing I just thought of too is I've even had it where students were given a workflow analysis as their project. If that happens to you, just do the exploration, okay? Interview or whatever. So, all right.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight, you guys. I'll get this recording posted and
Right.
let me know if anything comes up, okay?
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so
Bye.
much for
Yep,
Katie. All right.
yep. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.